The thoughts, views, and comments expressed by Sidebar, its guests, callers, and advisors are not necessarily those of the management, ownership, or production unit of ILS Verizon Media Group. Sidebar, a 103.5 The Beat podcast, is a production of ILTV Studios and may not be reproduced or represented, in part or in its entirety, without the express written consent of Verizon Media Group. Sidebar is the intellectual property of Verizon Media Group. Copyright 2024. All rights reserved.
Welcome to Sidebar, a 103 The Beat podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna, and today, well, we're going to talk about a couple things. Clearly, this is a rant episode. Next week, we're going to be talking with Chef Jamal Petty about the importance of Bahamian culinary art to preserving and the preservation of Bahamian culture. But that's next week. This week, half a rant. It won't be a big rant, a small rant, simple rant. But before we get to that, I just want to say, this week, something hit me that several things hit me. One is that if you don't know what the purpose is of something, that you are definitely going to abuse it. And of course, that's something that we've always known, right? We've heard that a million times. I'm pretty sure that I stole that from Miles Monroe. But yeah, we tend to think about it in terms of simple things that are straightforward, and it's like, well, clearly that's not how you use a car. That's clearly not what you do with orange juice. Like, we think of it like that. Or even like, you don't put mayonnaise and conch out. But there are things that we just accept as this is the way things are, and we never question, well, what exactly is it? I'll give you an example. The stock market. Now, the average Bahamian does not participate in the stock market, but I have heard the argument that the stock market essentially is nothing more than fancy gambling, right? And people say that in a sense, like, you know, life is a gamble, everything is a gamble. But I also think that's because people don't fully understand what stocks and bonds are exactly. All they know is that some people put money in stocks and become very rich, and other people put money in stocks and don't become rich. And therefore, there is no rhyme and reason to it. It's essentially a game of chance. That's the thing. If you fully understand what it is, then it isn't. Right now, we see a lot of people, everybody's into AI, and everybody's saying, oh, AI is the wave of the future, all right? You got to get in on AI. This is the ground floor thing. It's the next big thing. And so people are investing in AI, whether that is through stocks or whether that is actually in integrating AI as much as possible into their businesses. That may pay off, that may not pay off. But at the same time, what is the point of that? Before AI, it was crypto. Crypto is the next big thing. Everybody's complaining, oh, if I had gotten Bitcoin in 2007, I'd be a millionaire now, I'd be a billionaire. But in reality, what exactly is crypto, all right? The fact that no one could fully understand or appreciate or remember NFTs with the JPEGs, where people were selling pictures of monkeys smoking for millions and millions of dollars, and everybody say, oh, NFTs are the next big thing, you got to get into NFTs, and nobody knew what an NFT was or the point of NFT. What is the actual utility? How does this help us in our day-to-day life? Nobody knew. Nobody cared. Everybody's like, you just got to get into it. NFTs fail. Remember, everybody was into Forex failed. And the thing is, I don't know if these things are failing as much as we did not fully understand what was the purpose of them. We just assumed that these are ways that people get rich. And if you get in early enough, that you would get rich. But to take it back to stocks, the point of stocks isn't to be, you put $100 in it and 5 years from now, you get $1 million. Stocks are a way for companies to raise investments. It's nothing more than people pooling their resources together to get something accomplished. And when that thing is accomplished, it makes enough money that I can pay you back the money you gave me to start, as well as give you a little extra for taking this chance with me to build this idea, to build out this thing. And so, for example, Cable Bahamas, when they first came about, they had shareholder offerings and people bought shares in the early days of cable, and that's how they fundraised the money to start Cable Bahamas. And so those people who bought in the initial share offering, they got their money back, and then they get dividends. They own part of the company. If you are just throwing money out and saying, oh, everybody's talking about this thing, but I don't know how it works, you are wasting your money. You should never invest in something that you don't fully understand. If the final product is not the thing that you really, really think this will be a good idea, or I can see how this will work in the country, I want this to be a thing, then what is going to happen is you are going to throw money out at something that is a chance. Now you are actually gambling. And that's different from how stocks and bonds are supposed to work. Well, bonds are you lending money probably to a government so that they can get things done, maybe an infrastructural change, or maybe to do something like move something forward. And then later on, they say, we're going to pay you back with interest for lending us this money. That whole volatility, it looks attractive. And so we start to think, well, that must be what the purpose of this thing is, to get rich quick. But if you look at people who are billionaires for a very long time in the stock market, people like Warren Buffett. Everybody knows Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett has been a billionaire longer than most of us have been alive. Warren Buffett invests in food. Warren Buffett doesn't invest in crypto. He doesn't invest in AI. He don't know what those things are. He's like, they don't make sense to him. But you know what? You have these passing fads all the time. The long, slow money, that's the one that sustains you over time. 20 years ago, there was no such thing as crypto. 20 years ago, AI was not a thing, right? Except for the movie by Steven Spielberg. 20 years ago, nobody knew about Forex and Forex trading and all this different stuff. But 20 years ago, people were eating food. 20 years in the future, maybe NFTs will make a comeback. 20 years in the future, maybe Forex will make a comeback. Maybe crypto will still be around. Maybe it won't be. But you know what will be here as long as human beings are here? Food. People are still going to need to eat. People are still going to need a place to live. People are still going to need clothes to wear. The basic human necessities still exist. And so investing in those sort of things, and even things like utilities. If civilization is not collapsed, we are going to want electricity. We're going to want internet access. We're going to want access to entertainment. These are basic fundamental things that help society run smoothly. NFTs did nothing to make your life better. And I will dare argue, AI has never made your life better. And it will continue to not make your life better. But it is a fad right now. And I don't know what it's for. It was supposed to make everybody's life easier, but I don't know anybody whose life has been made easier by AI. But anyway, that's a different point. The point is, If you don't know what a thing is supposed to be for, then it is very, very, very easy for us to not only abuse it, but to be abused by it. And so, with that, I want to bring up the question of, well, what is a government for? And we talked about this before. It is election time. Election time is upon us. This is an inevitability. But now that election time is here, what are we casting our votes for? And I want every person who has the ability to vote to think about it in the actual sense, because it's very easy to say, okay, I like this person, or this is my party, or that is my party, but we don't. Even the people we know, even the people that we think are perfect, if we don't know what their job and their responsibilities are, or what is the purpose of their existence in that sense, we can't hold them accountable. We can't ask them the right questions to do things that we think that they should, because we don't know. We don't know. We would love to believe that our MP is a community leader. And for a long time, I thought that. But an MP is not a community leader. That's not their primary job. We like to think that, like, MPs are supposed to, we have this concept that we should see them all the time, they should be friendly, and they should help us out. And you know what? Every MP that has ever done that is going above and beyond, because that's not actually their job. But if we don't know what their job is, then how can we go to them and say, you're not doing your job, you should be replaced, or you are doing your job, you shouldn't be replaced? The truth is, the only real job that a member of parliament has, as a member of parliament, is to represent their constituency in terms of legislation. Their job is to sit down and come up with laws that benefit the people within their community. And laws are such a big thing that I don't think that we fully grasp it. Like, we don't understand that to sit down and write something that is going to be forever, it's cemented on paper, for lack of a better term. We don't see how big that is a thing, because we're like, oh, I see this person since last election. Or I have seen this person. They go to everybody's funerals. And the real question you should be saying is, what legislation did you help to pass that has made my life better? What legislation are you putting forward to make my life better? Now, in all fairness, if an MP has come to you and say, I will get this, this, and this done in your community, and they've done that, and they've gotten those things accomplished, they kept their promise. But what if you could get more from them? And so that's what I want to discuss today. How big you should dream. It is inevitable that in the coming months, random people will be knocking at your door. And while there will be some people who have no big needs and dreams because they are economically secure enough that they can get everything that they need, while there are other people who are not economically secure enough that they feel like, help me pay my rent or help me get a minimum wage job is enough. I I'm going to suggest that all of us, rich and poor, black and white, red, gold, orange, purple, pink, whatever color, we should dream bigger. And it is not enough to say, I am not the other team to get a vote. It should be, well, here are the things that I want for the country. Here's the legislation that I would like to present going forward. Here's the big dream, the big Bahamian dream to make your life better. I also have some suggestions. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss that. Once again, this is Sidebar 103 to Be podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. We'll be right back.
Are you ready, Bahamas? Get up, get moving, and join us at IL Fit Fest. Saturday, November 15th at the University of the Bahamas playing field. From 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., we're talking a variety of fitness vendors, free health screenings, and $10,000 in giveaways. And for the kids, we have a kids zone. And entry is absolutely free. Don't miss the IL Fit Fest.
Welcome back to Sidebar 103 to Be podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. And today we are talking about asking for something big. Because if we're talking about legislation isn't tiny things. These aren't things that, a single individual can easily obtain by just going outside and doing it themselves. These are big things so big. So think of it like if it were to be a relationship, all right? Legislation is a marriage. This is you sitting down with somebody and saying, hey, let's get together, let's put it on paper, let's publish that paper so that everybody knows. We're going to put it on record so that in all time immemorial, people will know that we were together, that we were cohabiting, that we had consummated this marriage, that we became one household. We're going to involve, maybe have a big lavish ceremony, but it's going to be a religious figure and our family and friends. That's legislation. That's what should be happening at the House of Assembly. What you should not be asking for is, let's hold hands. Can we go out for coffee? That's dating. That's like basic stuff. You don't need paperwork for that. Like texting somebody. That's basic stuff. And I feel like for a long time we've been taught, because we didn't fully understand what the purpose of the House of Assembly was, what our legislative branch is or was, or what our government is or was, that we have been asking for things that, in all honesty, are too small. There are things that's like, okay, this is a problem, and getting the government to help, yes, great. But you want to ask for big things. You want to sit down and think for a second and say, what is the biggest problem in my life? And this is the part where I need you to sit down and be honest with ourselves and with our present circumstance. If you enter this conversation with the thought that I am a perfect person, I live in a perfect society, the people who are genetically related to me are perfect, and the problem is with everybody else, then we are going to have, not only are we going to have a disagreement, but we will never get to actually having a perfect society. It is the thing that needs to be corrected, in my estimation, has been and will remain the system. It is less about correcting people, because even if we look at stuff like crime, there are crimes that people would commit if they know they could get away with it, but they don't because they can't, because the system doesn't allow them to get away with it. But all the stuff the system allows you to get away with, people are like, well, everybody is doing it. Nothing happened. And that's how we get a society falling apart. We got to figure out what are the systemic problems that need to be changed. And that's not basic things like the roads or we need to be paid more, because that is changing. That's a superficial change, right? It is when we start to actually correct the system where it is deficient that these things automatically correct themselves. So we have a lot of people complain about roads, and they say, oh, there's a bunch of potholes and potholes everywhere. First of all, let's take aside the fact that the so-called first world countries, if you watch their media, they also complain about potholes. People in New York complain about potholes, people in London complain about potholes, because that is the nature of roads. That's the nature of everything. If everything eventually decays and falls apart, while you could question the rate at which these things form, you also have to look at, hey, what causes a pothole? Okay, is it flooding? What causes flooding? Unchecked development all over the place that leads nowhere for water to drain off naturally, and so now you have places that have potholes that didn't have potholes before. Are we holding those businesses and those developers as accountable as we could or should? When the government tries to hold them accountable, how often do those developers and businesses go on television and make it seem as though the government is persecuting them because the government is asking them to clean their drains or to not build in a certain way or do X, Y, and Z? And how many times have persons pushed back against the government when the government says, hey, I want to tax you a little bit so that we could have a fair share, so we can invest in the community that you're pulling all these funds out of? And the people are like, I will fire everybody in this building before I let you get a single red dollar from me. And that's either government, right? That's either administration. That happens all the time. And as a sidebar, there's this thing that you will sometimes hear reoccurring by wannabe capitalists on talk radio, which is, we need more businessmen in government because businessmen know how to run a business and the government isn't being run like a business. Well, here's the problem. One, the government is not a business. The government is, for all intent and purposes, the job of the government is not to make money. Any surplus of money should be reinvested into the Bahamian people. We've not arrived at a surplus yet, but in terms of like, oh, we got so much money, we could just fling it out. But every penny, every dollar should be reinvested within the public, because the government is, for all intent and purposes, the most non-profit organization that in existence within our country and within all countries. That is how governments should work. Governments are not there to make a bunch of money off of the people. The revenue that is collected through taxes is supposed to be reinvested. So the government is not a business. But secondly, have you taken a look at the major businesses throughout this country? Ask yourself, those people are making millions, and I suspect sometimes billions of dollars off of the Bahamian people, and they don't pave their parking lots. They got a 1,000 square foot parking lot that has massive potholes in it. And they can easily go one Sunday, one Saturday, scrape it all up, repave it, repaint it, and be done in a weekend. And they do not do it. They have the funds to do it. This is their parking lot. This parking lot is a part of what makes them the millions, if not billions of dollars that they make every single year. And you know what they do with it? They pocket the money. They do not take care of the infrastructure that is within their own remit. How many times have you gone into business and you look up and you look around and you say, wow, all the lights are not on in this building. Is it because they're trying to save electricity, or is it because the bulbs haven't been changed? Have you ever looked in the corner and said, wow, that looks like mold inside of this private institution? Why is there mold coming out of the building? Shouldn't they remediate the mold? But they're running a multi-million-dollar business. Look at the employees. All of the employees are angry and upset and frustrated at life. And the question is it their home life? Is it that when they come to work, they're not being compensated enough to put on a brave face, to pretend to care? And you say, this business person will suddenly make the world a better place because they run a business that is crumbling in front of us? They can't take care of their own signs, but you think that they can take care of the government signs? You think they can take care of the government infrastructure? You think that they can take care of the government employees? But having the government run like a private business would be the greatest error when I look around at the state of private businesses in the Bahamas. I don't want it to look like that because the majority of businesses that are privately owned, they are falling down, they are dilapidated because the people who are in charge of them, who own them, are like, well, we're here to make money. And money does not mean reinvesting. Even though a reinvestment in their own business only profits them. They're not doing that. So why would they reinvest it when it comes to the Bahamian public? And so that's a sidebar as to why I do not think that we should ever sit down and say, oh yeah, this will be better. But back to the point of legislation. We gotta want bigger and dream bigger, right? What are the things that are not just holding you back, but are emptying your pockets right now? And we live so close to America, it is easy for people to think about the word taxes, but in a general sense, the 10% on VAT that we pay is minuscule. It is not enough to fund the things that we want. I'm going to oversimplify the numbers, but if the government had $10, 6 to 8 of those dollars go to paying government employees. You gotta pay the government employees because they've worked. The rest of it is gonna go to infrastructure and development and whatever else. And the question then is, how do we go beyond that point when we don't have enough revenue? And I'm not gonna make this a rant about how we need to have more taxes. If it was me personally, I would ask my MP to push for more revenue to be generated through stiffer, harsher, intense tax collection from the people who have the most. Let's remove the cap on NIB, where me and you are paying 8%, 9% of our total salary to the government to help sustain persons who have contributed to society previously, whether they were 60 years ago, they used to work, now they're old, they're getting a pension. Somebody who was in the system working, now they're pregnant, they need maternity benefits. Somebody who was in the system, they got injured, they got sick pay, whatever. I have no issue with that. What I have an issue with is that number stops at around $800. So if I'm making $1 million a year, you're not going to get 8% of that $1 million because NIB is like, man, that's too much. You know, we don't want all that money. And it might only be 3 people who that applies to. But if it applies to them, let's go get that money. Let's get the $80,000 one time from somebody. 80,000 is 80,000 10%? It might be 80. Yeah, it is 80,000. Okay. But let's go get that money, you know? But of course, that is, I fear, still too vague a concept because that's not directly what's taking money out of your pocket or my pocket. What is taking money out of our pockets are the things that are inescapable. Once again, food. All right? You gotta eat. How do we get lower cost food? Well, if it doesn't have to travel all the way around the world, that's one way. If it is VAT free, that's one way. But that's still only 10%, you know? The bigger solution would be if we have another means of getting the necessary nutrients within our diet as a surefire thing at such a low cost that everybody has access to the same level of nutrients and food, and they don't have to worry that the $20 I have is, at this point you can't even buy noodles. So I could buy a can of gas, some white flour, some white sugar, and maybe some sausage, maybe some tuna, and I'm gonna be eating pancakes and steamed tuna for the next week until I get another $20 to go back to the food store. I don't think that's a very nutritious meal. Giving you insight into my life. But how do we get food to be more affordable? We can look around the world at what other people have done. If food is a necessity, this is going to offend somebody, and that's fine, I don't care about them. If food is a necessity, if the basic line of humanity is human beings need to eat, they need to sleep, then food should be a human right. And it shouldn't be food that is going to give you cancer as a human right. Food that is healthy and nutritious is a human right. Then I dare say we need to have more stores or places where food is accessible, where that is not a for-profit business. What does that look like? I don't know. Does that mean perhaps inside some smaller communities, we have either like a co-op where the members of the community band together and they form a store that isn't selling them corned beef with the intent of making a profit on the corned beef, but selling them corned beef so that they could afford corned beef? Because at this point, corned beef is going to start costing $11 a can at some point. I don't eat corned beef, but corned beef is just, it's an irresponsible amount of money how much corned beef is starting to cost, all right? So you get in a small community, through legislation, the government allows for individuals to come together and say, okay, you guys can all invest inside this thing and start this business that's not really a business because it's not for profit. The whole point of it is to get food as cheaply as possible within your community. Maybe that is the solution. Maybe the solution is a government-run food store where we are selling it at cost. The point of this is not to make a profit. The point of this is to cover the cost of paying the employees a fair and livable wage, and to get as much nutritious food within this community as possible. The question of can we feed ourselves has been asked time and time again in the past 4 years. And it seems like the answer is maybe, all right? It is a possibility, but how do we get persons to see that? How do we get persons to see we need to buy more into Bahamian products? The easiest way is if we already have distribution centers, AKA food stores that exist, we gotta pressure them into carrying more Bahamian stuff and not allowing them to continue to have the excuses that they have had for years, saying, oh, the Bahamian food ain't up to this quality or whatever. No. The Bahamian food is actually of a superior quality. So when our lettuce is better, our broccoli is better, our tomatoes are better. The problem is the shelf stability of something that is unripe and picked in California a month and a half ago is different. Oh, we don't know how much the Bahamian food is gonna. Hey, stores run out of stuff all the time. Okay, right? Buy all of the Bahamian tomatoes, buy all of the Bahamian onions, and sell it at cost. And maybe we give you that as a discount in some form or the other, right? Or inversely, well, no, because the problem with these people is the more you tax them, they only pass on the taxings to our beloved brothers and sisters. So you gotta have to say, okay, I'm gonna give you a 1% break for every ton of Bahamian product that you sell. You know, and that will incentivize them to find Bahamian stuff. They will go door to door and beg people, can we sell your mangoes and your avocado in our food store? Just so they could have that little 1% break, all right? And that's going to help persons economically who they're buying these stuff from, but it's also going to help us get more nutritious food in. And then it's going to create a culture of let's buy actual Bahamian food. It is very difficult in our people want to be nationalistic and they say, oh yeah, buy Bahamian and do this Bahamian, do that. Is it really buying Bahamian if you're only buying retail? If these things are not produced within the Bahamas? I want to buy from Bahamian producers, Bahamian manufacturers, Bahamian, even if it's Bahamians refining something, taking something from out of the country, bringing it into the country and changing what it is to make it's not inherently Bahamian, but to give it the Bahamian flair, the Bahamian flavor. And I fear that that is not necessarily happening. So if we start from there, we say, I want cheaper food, but I don't want it by you fiddling around with the taxes. I don't want it by you necessarily threatening the existing stores because they will only turn against us, and we've seen that. 2022, it happened where they're like, oh, the government say what? I ain't gonna listen to the government. Government can't make me adjust my VAT. We've given them too much power. We really need to take some of that power back from these food stores. But because that's a national security issue where the people who can literally starve your nation to death don't listen to you when you say, hey, ease up in this direction, ease up in that. That's a national security issue. That's something that we need to address. But once again, perhaps that itself is too philosophical. So what else can we do, right? Well, And this one will offend less people, but this one will make more sense, all right? How much do you pay for rent or mortgage? Let's change housing. And you say, oh, well, the government is working on housing. Yes, they are. But I want radical change. I want somebody to pitch me something so crazy that immediately afterwards, all of Bria goes to the news and says, we don't agree with this. That's what I want. That's the type of level of change that I'm hoping for. Now, that might just be anarchy on my part, but we need a place to sleep. We just said human beings need food and they need shelter, right? If you're gonna sleep, you need shelter. How is it possible that we have people who are old and they don't have any security in where they're going to live in 5-10 years? That they have to have children with the hope that when they are old, that the children will be able to take care of them and have a place to live, because it's cheaper to have a child than it is to have a mortgage, or it's easier to have a child than it is to have a mortgage. That can't be right. That's weird, because it is a human need. It is a human right, I dare say, that we should have a place to live. How are we going to get that to happen, all right? I do not think that any one person should have swaths of land that they are not using, but it's under their control. And I'm certain that there is probably some law somewhere that already exists that says you're supposed to pay VAT on any property over a certain amount, whether or not you're using it, all right? So one, let's start going after those people. But two, the property can be used. So why don't we get that property? And maybe you buy it at a reasonable value as the government from these people, or, eminent domain, but it is not it's not feasible that people don't have a place to live. And we expect society to not collapse on itself, because that's adding to the frustration. And even the people who have a place to live, let's say through some miracle, you're only paying $400, $500, $600 for rent. That's still $400, $500, $600 extra dollars a month that you could have in your pocket, right? If we fix housing, if everybody has a sure place to live that they don't pay any money on, immediately, we don't even need to fix the food thing. Everybody can eat sushi, because suddenly everybody has a place to live, I think about the people who are paying $1,200, $2,000 a month, all right? You have a place to live now. And there are ways to make it work where everybody can be happy. Stephen is an extremist. Stephen will definitely be like, guys, if a multimillionaire owns 50 acres out west and he is selling it and he refuses to develop it in any way, shape, or form, he's just sitting on it, we are going to tax him to the hilt, tax them for 50% of its value. That will either help them to reduce the cost of it, to offload it so that it can be used for some good, whether that is housing, whether that's building a factory, building a school, building a hospital, but it needs to be used. And you keep charging them that, and either they keep paying it, or when they don't pay it, and they accrue so much debt to the government sees it because, like, hey, okay, you owe us $150 million in taxes, and the property is worth $80 million, so we're just going to take the property and call it a day. Now the government has that property in their remit. They can do whatever they need to do with it. That's Stephen's extreme solution to a lot of things. I don't think that Bay Street should look as dilapidated and horrible as it does. I don't think that as a Bahamian, every time I see a tourist come off a cruise ship and they head east, that I should feel a desire in my stomach to scream at them, no, 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 go the next way because everything down there break up. I shouldn't feel that in my stomach, all right? What I should feel is they could go east, west, south. They can't go north because I'll just be back on the cruise ship. But that is a problem. Why is all of, and I understand that, yes, the government has done a great job because Bay Street is being changed and we see the changes is happening. And I think it's like 7 or 9 different buildings that have been demolished and removed, and that is a great thing. Extreme Stephen would knock them all down. I would rather it be all green space and tourists out there having picnics on the green lawn and Bahamians having access to it to put on plays and festivals. We always saying, oh, we need a place. The food fest is on the fort, and the fort is in a state, and you can't have too many people on Fort Charlotte because it's causing the thing to be compromised, and that we have all these events and activities that we want to have at different places, but we can't have them because there isn't enough space. You know where we would have space? Bay Street. Knock it all down. Raise every single building that is not presently in use, and all the buildings that are presently in use need to be brought up to a certain standard. I can complain about this all I want. I cannot make that happen. Legislation makes that happen. The government can put in writing that there are certain standards that you must uphold when your building is on the front street, on the high street, on the main street. If you are a commercial property, you must have this level of standard, this standard of care. If you are interacting within 1,000 feet of whatever, whether this is a tourism proposal or not, there needs to be a certain standard. And if homeowner associations can try to pressure you into cutting your grass a certain number of times a year, could pressure you into saying you need to paint your house or you can't paint your house that color. If a homeowners association can do that, why can't the government get these people to clean their own drains? These private properties that have drains on their property, as opposed to them just building higher and letting it drain into the road. The government can. That's legislation. The government can say, hey, we know that this property belongs to you. It has been in a state of dilapidation from the late 90s, from the late 80s. Don't worry about it. This now belongs to the Bahamian people. You have 90 days to respond. That sort of thing. That's what I want. So what exactly are we going to ask for when people come knocking on our door in the next several months asking for our votes? I don't want you to approach them with vitriol. I don't want you to approach them with anger and saying, I've not seen you, or I can't say I don't want you to approach them with happiness, because maybe you are happy to see them. Maybe they are great people, right? Maybe they're friends of yours, all right? So fine, approach it with happiness, but I still need you to hold your friend saying, listen, you's my boy. You do good around this community. You help us here. But I got a bigger dream. What is that big dream? That's what I want us to figure out. We're not going to figure it out in this hour that we have. But we got to figure it out before they start campaigning. It's too late for the by-election. Don't worry about that. Let's worry about next year. What is the big thing that we are going to ask? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to throw out a couple of things when we wrap up. You are watching and listening to SIDEBAR 103 podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Paradise Premium Foods, where exceptional taste meets everyday convenience. Right in the heart of Hurricane Hole Plaza, whether you're planning a beachside brunch, an intimate dinner, or simply restocking your favorites, we offer only the finest selection of local and imported goods, handpicked for quality, freshness, and flavor. At Paradise Premium Foods, shopping is effortless, service is personal, and every visit feels like a treat. From gourmet meals to go to organic essentials and indulgent treats, this is your neighborhood market elevated. Live well, eat better. Discover Paradise Premium Foods, now open at Hurricane Hole Plaza, Paradise Island. Paradise Premium Foods. Taste the difference.
Edenwell has expanded their testing menu. We now offer blood work, drug screening, and so much more. Our hours of operation are Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., located on 11 Madera Street. We are here for all of your laboratory needs, with fast and reliable lab work done by our friendly and knowledgeable staff. Let us help you take the needed steps to stay in the know about your health. Let's keep working towards a healthier you. Stay Eden well.
Welcome back to SIDEBAR 103 B podcast, powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. Today we've been talking about what is it that you're going to ask for this election cycle. It's like, election time, it's election time. The kids on TikTok know what I'm talking about. Anyway, what are you going to ask for? And so this is my suggestion, right? Only big things. Don't ask for money. Don't ask for a little job. I need you to ask for big things that are going to change your life massively. Because yes, a job is helpful, right? It's great to have a job. Jobs are great, yay. But you having a job, maybe you're in the 52-week program, that's a temporary thing. What happens if you get on that job and somebody doesn't like you, or they make your life miserable, or they get you fired, or whatever it is, right? You don't want to ask for something that is not just temporary, but still without your control, you don't have the ability to make things happen. You want to create an environment where you don't need to ask for a job. You can create a job. You can make a way for yourself. So what are the systemic things that we need to be put in place that are going to make all of our lives better wherever we find ourselves in the spectrum of Bahamianness? I am going to propose that we start at the basic stuff. Food, because everybody got to eat. Let's get not just affordable food, not just local food, nutritious food as a basic standard for everyone within the country. It's going to make our kids smarter. It's going to make our workers more productive. It is going to make life better. Housing. Everybody got to sleep, and you need to sleep somewhere. Whether that's somebody who is homeless, whether that's somebody who is living in somebody else's house, whether it's somebody who's renting, whether it's somebody who has a mortgage, having to not worry about whether or not you have a place that is safe to sleep is going to change people's lives massively. Mental health care. You and I both see more and more people on the side of the road talking to themselves, screaming at themselves. But those are the extreme ends. You also see people freaking out on their 2-year-old. That person has a mental health issue. They're going through a mental health crisis, and they're going to give that child enough trauma for them to have a mental health crisis. We need to look at mental health in a more serious and robust way. That's going to change society in a massive way. Transportation. I know that you think that, what are you talking about, child? But being able to move around is a basic human right. You need, as a human being, you should be able to get from point A to point B. If there is a grocery store that is giving away fresh produce Or even like if you were able to go to, what the place called? Oh God, it's not the farmer's market, produce exchange, right? Where they're getting the fruits and vegetables from the family island, they're bringing it up wholesale, they're selling it at the most affordable prices that you can afford. But you can't get there because you don't have a car and nobody in your family have a car and ain't no buses run past there, and the bus that run close to there don't run by your house. So now you got to catch 3 and 4 buses to get there. That's a problem, right? But now if you have not just affordable transportation, but a proper working public transportation system. If you think I was extreme on housing, you don't want to hear my plan for transportation. But that working, that changes the lives of so many Bahamians. And I promise you, if you fix any of those 4 things, you are going to see a reduction in crime. You are going to see a more happy society. You're going to walk into stores and into government offices and into the passport office, because I don't know what they are, right? And you're going to see happy, more productive citizens everywhere you go. You're going to see people who don't just give the lip service of being proud to be a Bahamian, but actually actively being the Bahamians that they want other Bahamians to be, and actually showing their pride in their existence. But these are massive changes that we cannot get on our own. By the way, the transportation, we should not have to pay. That should be free. And unprivatize the entire thing, nationalize the entire transportation system. If you want to have taxi drivers, fine. There's always going to be space for private individuals to do stuff. We need some sort of almost like Bahamian Uber, but also all the jitneys and all the buses, they need to be run with society more in mind. Make all them government workers, pay everybody $60,000 to $80,000 as a driver, but make it very difficult to be a driver, but also make it, if you touch a driver, the same rules that they have in the States. If you touch a bus driver in the States, that's a felony. You go into jail, all right? So now the bus could run day and night, because these are a protected class of people. You treat bus drivers like you treat judges and police officers. You don't want to touch them. Leave them alone. They different. So you ain't even thinking about robbing them. So now imagine if you have a 24-hour bus system. That not only helps tourism, because everybody is like, oh, don't count if it ain't tourism, but it also is going to help you as the public, because now we worrying about the price of gas. You worrying about taking care of your car. You worrying about this car breaking down. My transmission messed up. It been messed up. Been messed up for years. It's going to remain messed up until God calls that car home to glory. But imagine if instead of that, I knew that every 15 minutes, no matter what day it is, I can catch a bus to wherever I need to go within the country. That even if I paid a nominal fee for a bus card, it will allow me to ride anywhere I need to go as long as that card is active. Or you have places like Germany where they just get on. I mean, only tourists really buy cards or buy bus passes. Everybody else like, get on, get off. It's gonna take you where you need to go. You just need to know where you wanna go, all right? And now I have mobility. This is gonna help small businesses, because there are people who wanna patronize your business, but they can't get to your business because they don't have a car and your business is on the other side of town and you don't have 12 different locations. So they gotta go buy the same fast food every day, as opposed to going and trying your cocoa bread, oxtail patties or whatever. The whole point is, you fix these big things and the little things start to fix. Because even if you fix that transportation thing, that helps the roads. I'm going over time. I'm gonna stop talking. The whole point is, I want you to sit down first with yourself and then bring up the conversation. But what is the biggest, craziest thing that we could ask the MP for when they come? Not a small, like don't ask them for money. Don't ask them for $1,000. Don't ask them for $200. Don't ask them for shirt and beer, and no. What is the biggest thing that our community could use? Is there an empty lot that we could use as a farm? Is there like, what is the big thing that if it works, it is going to change our lives, not just in that moment, but for years to come, and that we can build off of that success. That is what I want to leave you with. Once again, you've been watching and listening to Sidebar 103 The Beat podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. True God still.